hello there. Yes, well, it is indeed Saturday. Hooray! Yes. So I hope you can do lots of Saturday things which make you feel, well, lovely, hopefully. Yes. As for me, I don't know, I'm just going to stand here probably. I suppose I do, all the time, metaphorically or otherwise. You can come and watch me again. One of the things I'll be doing whilst I'm standing here, I'd like to think, is having a reasonably coherent moral position on the world, which, unfortunately for a lot of our, well, enlightened commentators, so much more intelligent than me, definitely, struggle with sometimes. I did have to smile yesterday at Lawrence Fox, who had noticed that certain Steve Bannons in the world had made certain gestures, which we can brush off a number of times, but when people do it quite deliberately, we have to presumably take a stance, because, of course, we wouldn't have moral Lawrence Fox's mates... apart from him, but Lawrence Fox would never muck Nazi image. No, of course not. Still, anyway, I expect that Lawrence won't mention either of those two things, but it's definitely very, very bad when, Steve Bannon, that well-known man of, what is he, a sensible centrist, I suppose, does things like that. Still, I'm very surprised, because normally Lawrence Fox and the rest of them will simply, just pretend that reality somehow isn't that. Which brings us on very neatly to this notion, I think, that most right-wingers have, and which they never, ever want to admit, but they do basically agree with, which is that certain people are very big and powerful and very important, and we need to listen to them and give them lots of money. And some other people are kind of okay, and we can probably, give them rights. And then there's a whole mass of other people underneath that, they probably don't deserve as many rights as the rest of us. Always us, eh? Particularly me, given my melatonin condition of my skin, inevitably. Except, of course, I had to come down lower in the pecking order because I hold the wrong mental viewpoints. But over the last few days there have been lots of jumping around with dead babies in Gaza. Yes, certain dead babies, of course, important dead babies who have been dreadfully treated in importantly dead ways by very, very bad people, compared to other people that have treated other babies perfectly respectfully because they are the most moral army in the world. Lots of that going on, and it just leaves a very nasty taste in the mouth because the ideology, the basic racist ideology, is very, very front and centre. Try to hide it, of course, through moral outrage, because, of course, certain people really deserve our outrage, and other people just don't, because they are bad. Now, we had this from Darren Grimes, a, alleged Christian. I still have my doubts, really, but perhaps that's just me being picky with this. Yeah, Islamists beheaded 70 Christians in a Protestant church in Congo. Oh, dear. Christianity is dangerous in much of the world. We must stand against this evil that is spreading. Yes, indeed, this evil. Not actually mentioned there, but you've got various Islamist-based terrorist groups out there that, sort of do things like this. Same in Nigeria. These people are very, very deeply unpleasant, and if they're acting on behalf of their God, they're wrong. There you go. See, it's not easy. It's not hard for me to say that. But, of course, the problem with this is that it then leads on to this notion of, there are certain religions that are just very, very bad, and other religions that are good, and the bad religions always oppress the good religions, and the good religions are obviously the Christians, and you can have the Protestants who are very, very good, and the Catholics who are mostly good, although maybe not the Pope, we'll come back to him, and then you have the Jewish types, some of whom are quite good because they really can't stand the Palestinians, and others of them are very bad because, they think that the Palestinians are okay. And then there's, the others, the ones that are intrinsically bad, no matter where they come from, simply because we don't like their God. We, again. Yes. But the problem with this whole thing about Christianity being, oh dear, isn't it dreadful that Christians everywhere are being persecuted, is, of course, that a very large amount of the persecution that's sort of going on currently in the world, in terms of people destroying churches, is going on in the occupied territories in and around the state of Israel, because at the same time as flattening Gaza with all the very bad terrorist children in it, the state of Israel was, of course, flattening an awful lot of Christians out there. I'm not really quite sure if they were good Christians or bad Christians. I think they count as bad Christians because they were living in Gaza in ways that presumably the other Christians in Israel aren't, except, of course, what's going on currently in in Jerusalem is that Israeli ultra nationalists are basically trying to remove the Christian population there. Yes, which has led to various people, the Pope when he's out of his sick bed, being quite upset about it. I'm not really quite sure if he's being bad or wrong when he says that, or good and right, because that's a kind of Christian thing to do. I could ask Darren, but of course he won't know, because morality is something that passes him by. And this intrinsically is what I always think of as the bodies in a room fallacy that they have, which is whereby, right, okay, if you go into room A and there's a pile of bodies in there that are a metre short of the ceiling, and you're told that that is the room that's of all the people that Hitler killed, and then you're shown another room which has all of these bodies which are stacked right the way up to the very top of the same room, okay, and they're all the bodies of the people that Stalin killed, and therefore we have to assume that Stalin was a worse person than Hitler was. Do you see? It's the stacks of bodies that are very, very important, yes? Yeah, and it's often used. I mean, I do often sort of find this with young-ish people that are basically leaning quite heavily into a sort of fascist ideology that they see online. They will always say that Stalin killed more people than Hitler, which he didn't. That's right-wing historians basically including war dead in that, which I don't think Stalin directly was responsible for. That was Adolf Hitler. Yes, but you see, if I'm a mass murderer and I've killed 15 people, am I a nicer mass murderer than the person that's killed 16 people? And the answer is no, it's a farcical thing to say. We're both bad. That's the way those things work, because that's the way that morality works. But of course, our right-wing grifters cannot exist in that sort of world, because they live in a world where certain people are good and other people are bad, and they need to, for their clicks and their chocky bars on a Saturday, to persuade you of that. And this got me thinking to all of those wider notions that we have whenever we inscribe these things into law, because I was thinking about the Troubles. I've been reading various stuff about the Troubles, Northern Ireland, to those of you that don't know, and the number of Catholics versus the number of Protestants that were killed. And surely it must be, according to their morality, that if more Catholics died than Protestants in the Troubles, it must mean that they were the victims and therefore the Protestants were bad. Okay? Yes. Must be, mustn't it? Yeah. The IRA must therefore have been good people. Yes? No, obviously not. It's the way it works, is it? Yeah, you see? Because what I'm doing there is simply saying, well, all lives are equal. All lives are equal. But of course they weren't in Catholic areas in the 1960s and for a lot of the 1970s, because Catholics weren't viewed as being as valuable as their Protestant brethren, and therefore it didn't really matter so much when they were killed. You know, it was that whole notion of black people being 2/3 of a white person, or women just being property. It's exactly the same mindset, and you can see it in operation with these people, which is why they have to then stumble over their own particular problems, or in so many different cases simply things are not mentioned. But you can go back to a world, if you want, whereby certain people are only worth 2/3 of a white person, but you can see intrinsically that it holds no ability to have what might be called morality attached to it. And I think we should be saying the same thing to all of those people who earnestly believe that because somebody somewhere killed a baby that they are intrinsically bad, whereas the same area, other babies, lots of them being killed in the same area, shouldn't be afforded the same sensibilities. Anyway, do have a lovely Saturday. Whatever you do, don't murder people. Have a value of human life. All of it. I meet plenty of people I don't know, but I don't wish them dead. Okay? Because therein lies a particular form of madness. And a lifetime ago, a generation had to, well, basically end up with rooms full of people. and it wasn't very good. But we have to not have that as a basic ideology. And the problem with your Lawrence Foxes and your Darren Grimes and the rest of them is intrinsically that's what they're after, because for some godforsaken reason they honestly believe that they are better. And let's face it, they aren't, because the value of a human being is priceless. Anyway, do have a lovely day.